see. Can I open all 4 of these together? Yes, I can. But not in the correct order. How dumb. Um. Okay, good. Yeah, do you want me to share my screen so I can show off my, perspective?
Yeah.
Let's see. Where is... Here we go.
Okay, let me full screen you. Okay, awesome.
Okay, yeah, so here were our week 1 games. We had the Bills at the Rams, the Saints at the Falcons, 49ers at Bears, Steelers at Bengals, Eagles at Lions, Patriots at Dolphins, Ravens at Jets, Jaguars at Commanders, Browns at Panthers, Colts at Texans, Giants at Titans, Packers at Vikings, Chiefs at Cardinals, Raiders at Chargers, Buccaneers at Cowboys, and Denver Broncos at Seattle Seahawks. So, for our picks, I picked Buffalo because it's the Buffalo Bills, and I figured they were the all more better around team. I felt the Rams were dropping off some, not a lot, not as much as they did, but I felt that they were going to be the better team. I thought it was going to be a close game, and I thought it was probably like 55-45, 60-40. But yeah, so why'd you pick the Rams?
I mean, coming off the Super Bowl, it was kind of expected, but you know, yeah, we might as well move on from that game. I thought they were gonna win just because they were Super Bowl champs. I figured Super Bowl high would continue, but yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. Let's see, then I picked the Atlanta Falcons over the New Orleans Saints. I just figured that the Saints, they had a lot of good weapons, they had some good young talent, and that they were going to be the better team against the Saints. That I am not high on the Saints this year. Everyone's talking about, they might be able to beat the Buccaneers. And, I don't think they have it. They have, going to the season, Michael Thomas was questionable, and their young wide receivers were questionable. Kamara was questionable. Mark Ingram is always questionable. So I just figured the Falcons were gonna end up beating the Saints. So why'd you pick the Saints? And we can go over who won in a minute.
So the Saints won 27 to 26, and I chose the Saints just because thinking about last year with the Green Bay Packers, Jameis Winston week 1 is just different. And with everyone being healthy, I thought their roster was a little bit better. I'm also not as sold on Marcus Mariota compared to Jameis Winston, which is kind of crazy to say, even though Jameis Winston isn't playing today, which we'll get to this week's picks here in a little bit. But I think really with the Saints roster, their defense is really good, and then yeah, week 1, Jameis Winston's he's just different.
Kind of go into that. I feel like Winston has a lower floor but a higher ceiling than Marcus Mariota.
Yeah,
But Mariota is gonna have like is gonna be more consistent, and I would
exactly.
say he's played more consistent. Um, let's see. We both picked the 49ers, because let's face it, it was the 49ers playing the Bears. The 49ers had a pretty decent defense, a questionable offense with Trey Lance, because we had no idea how Trey Lance was going to play. We don't know what role Debo was truly going to have, but Brandon Ayuk was going off. So I figure the 49ers were going to go in and destroy the Bears.
That was the thing with that game is I'm a really big Trey Lance guy, so I was thinking they were going to do pretty good. It was going to open up more run game for them as well. With it being the monsoon game, I wouldn't have assumed that the 49ers would have lost, but Trey Lance did not play very good that game from what I can remember. And man, I was really surprised by that one. Like if I had to bet money on a game, it would have been the 49ers to mollywop the Bears, but 10 to 19, Bears win.
Yeah, it was definitely Interesting and surprising game. Next was the Bengals versus the Steelers. And I mean, I picked the Bengals just because I was pretty torn between who was going to win this one because I felt Steelers play a really good week one. And, their defense is pretty good. Their offense is questionable. And, the Bengals, I felt like, they were slightly better. Like, a lot of people were low on the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I'm definitely not low on the Pittsburgh Steelers going into the season. So I felt, I think the Bengals will win. They were coming off a tough loss, so I figured they were going to do a little better. They had a much better offensive line, so I figured, they're going to do better.
With that game, how many missed field goals were there? Because there were a lot, I believe, towards the end, like dinking and dunking all over the freaking goalposts. I think it was like
So
3 or 4, right?
I think there was 3 missed, but then there was the blocked field goal.
And then another big proponent of that was the Bengals long snapper getting hurt, if I do remember correctly.
Yeah,
So they had that guy that
caused the
wasn't
block.
in. So, and I can't remember how they won in overtime. I can't remember. I think the Bengals got the ball first, right? I don't remember. It's been a while because we're in week 4 now.
Yeah.
But, I chose the Bengals. I mean, their team is really good. And T. Higgins, this last week when we get to talk about it, that dude, I may have been wrong about him because I wasn't too high on him. But he's kind of a dude. Also with the Steelers quarterback room, I wasn't so sold on, Mitch Trubisky. I think he's all right, but I didn't think he would outplay Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and, they did. The Bengals, I think they were the better team, but, Steelers come out with a field goal, OT, and win it.
I've been high on Mitch Trubisky ever since the Bears got rid of him. Like, I've definitely felt he deserves a starting job.
I totally
And
agree.
I felt that like going in that he was gonna play really good with the Steelers. Whether or not that's been the case so far, but you know what? He's got all the talents of being a good starting quarterback. I just think he needs some time and to be given a chance.
100%. That's what I think.
So let's see, going on to the next game, the Detroit Lions, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm pretty high on the Lions in the sense of like I imagine them going close to somewhere around 8-8 and some 8-8-1 or 8-9, 9-8, just because they have so much talent, they have a great culture, and that like I just feel they're almost there to actually doing something. And I was not high on the Eagles going into this season, just like the Saints, but I just felt the Lions were the overall better around team.
I like what Dan Campbell's doing over there, but I've never been sold on Nick Sirianni much, but I was very high on the Eagles coming out this year. I was telling my dad, we were talking about it. He was like, "Yeah, you were right about the Eagles. They're doing good. Obviously, they haven't lost yet, but that was a pretty good game. I was at work watching it, so I was catching it here and there. But I mean, AJ Brown looked insane. I'm looking at the stats right now. He had 10 receptions for 155 yards. He averaged 15.5 per catch.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected AJ Brown to do as good as he did in that game, and like he'd be the #1 wide receiver for that team right away. Look, in my opinion, a lot of people say Jared Goff is not a good quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I feel like if you have a team where a great quarterback is going to lead you to a Super Bowl, he's not going to be that guy. But if you have a great team and a bad quarterback is going to keep the team from the Super Bowl, he's not going to be that guy either. He, he is going to go into a program, and if they're a good team, he will maintain that. But if they're a bad team, he'll probably maintain that too. If they're a great team, he'll probably maintain that too. And
played bad this year. Like realistically, Jared Goff's played pretty good this whole year.
I think this is probably one of his best seasons. You know, they went to the Super Bowl with he went to the Super Bowl with the Rams, and you know a lot of people blamed him for that loss, but it's hard to blame a loss on a quarterback unless they throw like 8 interceptions in the Super Bowl. You know, if you look at the game, I can't remember the stats. That's been a couple of years ago, but he was they were playing the Patriots with Tom Brady, I think. I mean, you know, that was one of his last years there, so it's hard to compete in that situation. It's like anybody playing Alabama in the national championship. But yeah, let's see. So next is we have picked the Dolphins. Both picked the Dolphins over the Patriots. Now, another team I was not really high on going into the season was the Dolphins. You know, I'm not a Tua hater, but I'm not a Tua lover. People are either Tua's one of the worst quarterbacks or no, Tua's amazing. And you know, I just think Tua's a mid quarterback, but he's gonna make good plays, but he's also gonna make dumb plays. He still looks like very much like a college quarterback, and I don't think he's improved to an NFL level yet. But a college quarterback who's a good college quarterback can still make a lot of plays in the NFL.
Yeah,
so I figured with Waddle and Hill that they were going to do better than the crippling Patriots. I mean, the Patriots got some good people, but I don't know. But they're just not there. But I picked the Dolphins for this game.
So the score was 20-7. Honestly, I'm surprised it was as close as it is. As being a Patriots fan, I looked at this unbiasedly, and I just don't think the Patriots are going to have a good year whatsoever. The team just, to me, just not very good. It's not a very good team. You know, the Dolphins have a lot of also too. Like, I wasn't very high on the Dolphins, especially Tua. And he's really played good this year up to this injury. I think just looking at the team the way I picked, I just think the Dolphins are a lot more talented, whereas the Patriots, they've got a decent run game, but with Matt Patricia calling the calls, it's like offensive calls, it's like...
What is that? Like, I looked at that, I'm like, Matt Patricia was a defensive guy, he got a head coach job as a defensive guy, and now he's the offensive coordinator, basically. It's just like, what is going on?
I don't think Bill knows what he's doing anymore. I love Bill Belichick. Like, he's obviously one of my favorite coaches. I think he's a great coach, but I don't know. I just, like, not naming an offensive coordinator before the season is just weird to me. And I get, like, the title thing to him. They don't think it matters, but it really does. And there were even, like, reports that a bunch of players on the team were like, why do we not have an offensive coordinator? Like, they thought it was stupid that they don't have somebody named for that. So, I don't know. I just don't think the Patriots are going to be that good this year. And if Mac Jones is out for a while, which might be the case, it's going to be rough with Hoyer. Like, today, they are not going to win. Yeah, I don't know.
I do have to say, when I was watching last week's Patriots game, I was happy that I saw little Jordan Humphrey getting some action. He used to be on the Saints, but little Jordan Humphrey went to my high school, so I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last time I saw him play in high school, he fumbled 3 times in the playoffs for us to lose. But you know what? I forgave him when I saw he was in the NFL doing good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Next, the Ravens versus. Who are the Ravens playing week 1?
The Ravens played. Let me find it.
I already forgot. Let me jump back over here. The Ravens played the New York Jets. Okay, I thought it was the Jets. I mean, it's the Ravens versus the Jets. That's why I picked the Ravens over the Jets. I mean.
And they didn't have Zach Wilson, right? He got hurt preseason or week 1?
He got hurt preseason.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
He got hurt week 1 of preseason. And you know, I picked the Ravens over the Jets because I mean it's the Ravens versus the Jets. The Jets just aren't there. Now, I did feel going into the season, I'm not super high on the Ravens. You know, I feel like their situation in their division is just such a tough division. and I felt I was kind of high on the Steelers, so I was less high on the Ravens. I wasn't super low on the Ravens, but I just feel like their team's not that amazing. And for the Jets, I could tell they were going to be better this year, but they're still going to be the Jets at the end of the day. That they're not going to be there yet. And with Joe Flacco starting, it was hard to say whether he was going to do good or bad because a lot of people consider Joe Flacco to be some quarterback who used to be good, who's now really bad. But that's not the case. Joe Flacco got hurt in Baltimore, and Lamar Jackson took over while he was injured. And you're not gonna bench a young guy who's doing amazing for an
No.
older guy who's doing pretty good.
Yeah. I
Um,
with
yeah.
the Ravens and Jets game, Ravens won 24-9. I've been a big Lamar fan since he was at Louisville. They've got another quarterback at Louisville coming out um, this year, probably Malik Cunningham. He's not as good as Lamar, but he reminds me of Lamar, so I'm pretty high on him. Not a whole lot of draft analysts, from what I've seen, have really talked about Malik Cunningham, but I think Lamar really good. Obviously, I'm just not so sold on the Jets still. I don't know if Robert Saleh makes. Whereas for the Ravens, I just don't see it yet. Everybody's calling Bateman the number one, and I was pretty high on him in fantasy, like fantasy wise. They right, like I don't know. It's tough to say, but Bateman could
Yeah,
be a number one. I don't know.
yeah. I think Bateman is treated as the number one from a defensive perspective.
Well,
But if you look at why Duvernay has done good this season, Duvernay has always been open, and it's been man to man against him.
you could
Whereas
you could almost
Bateman's,
make the argument too that Mark Andrews is their actual number one guy. Like I get he's a tight end, but let's be honest, he's their number one target. Like
yeah,
for week one, he had 5 receptions. That was the most. He doubled the most. I mean, Devin Duvernay had 4, but he had 2 touchdowns. But Mark Andrews is freaking. He's that guy.
hmm but I think what they're doing is Mark Andrews is their 5 to 15 yard guy.
Yep.
Duvernay is their 10 to 20 yard guy, and Bateman's their 20 plus, or I guess their
Yep.
15 plus guy.
Yep.
And it reflects that. It reflected that in the Jets game. A lot of the short passes uh did not go to Bateman, who was supposed to be their number one guy, and he didn't do much the first half until he got that like 35-yard slant pass, and he was gone. but but yeah, so it'll be interesting to watch both of those teams this year, honestly.
Yep.
Let's see. Next was the Washington Commanders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not high on the Commanders this year. I'm not high on the Jags going into this year. But if you're putting the Washington Commanders against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I felt the Commanders had the better defense,
That's
and
why I
both
chose him.
offenses are about the same, but their
I
defenses are
think
the difference.
I think Trevor Lawrence has looked good with under Doug Peterson. There's definitely a difference there compared to Urban Meyer. Um, but yeah,
I
I
agree.
that's why I chose the game.
I think he's out a while. hmm Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, well, speaking about toss-ups, that's the next game, the Panthers versus the Browns. This was a game where it's just like, everyone was super high on the Panthers against the Browns. And I'm just like, okay, Baker's playing his old team, but he doesn't have the chemistry that he does anymore with his team. And that like the Panthers defense has not been the same. They're just not a great overall team. But same with the Browns. Jacoby Brissett, I wasn't high on him at all. I was not thinking he was going to do very good. I think he's proven me wrong. Now, Jacoby Brissett's one of those guys who he can go in at any time as a backup and start and do pretty good. But I still didn't think he was going to compete that much against the Panthers. But for me, this game, it could have gone either way. I picked the Panthers just because I felt that they were going to have a game plan for the Browns. But yeah.
So with that game, I actually bet on this game with money, and I bet on the Browns to win. I just bet the money line. I bet the Browns to win this game. I think Baker Mayfield got he got shafted, if we're being honest here. What set this one over the edge for me is that running back room for the Browns. Um,
Yeah.
Nick Chubb is phenomenal. I didn't think they would throw it that much anyways with Jacoby Brissett being there.
Mhm.
Um, and like you said with the chemistry thing, Baker Mayfield doesn't have a whole lot of chemistry. Christian McCaffrey being hurt still, like he's had lingering injuries each of these 4 weeks. I think the only week he wasn't on like an injury report for a day or two was probably week 1. But other than that, it's been like hamstring or quad or calf or something along those lines. Which McCaffrey
You
had
know,
10 carries the first week he scored.
yeah, he came in week 1 with a potential shin injury.
Yeah,
That he
see,
was questionable for a
he's
shin.
been on the injury list for something every week so far, which it
Yeah.
sucks to see, but that's the trend. I mean, that's where he's at. And Nick Chubb, I mean, he had 22 carries in that game. He didn't score, but he had 22 carries for 141 yards. Nick Chubb is just different, and that was what set the edge for me. Was Nick Chubb. I mean, he's a difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, you were talking about that running back room. You got Nick Chubb, got Kareem Hunt, but then you have Dearness Johnson, who if one of those other two guys are out, he comes in and take their spot perfectly.
Oh yeah, 100%. That running back room is really good, and I think Kareem Hunt, if I'm not mistaken, he either has a year left on his deal or he's a free agent after this year, and he could be a number 1 back somewhere. He really could. I think he's smart for taking the money he's getting and being a number 2 back on a team that, will probably, if they had Deshaun Watson, as much as I hate to say it, they probably would have a good chance at a Super Bowl. I think he's still a difference maker, but that's obviously going to be probably next season until we see him actually play in the playoffs. Unless they make it, which I wouldn't put it out of the range, but we'll see.
See, I don't think either of those two teams are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have the Browns making it, but I think there's a chance they could. It's all dependent on Brissett, though.
Yeah. We'll see. This has been an interesting season so far.
Hmm.
Well, let's see. Got the Colts versus the Texans. I mean, it's the Colts versus the Texans. I thought Matty Ice was going to do better than he did for this game. And the Colts, I'm not high on the Colts this year, but compared to the division they're in, I thought they were going to be the best team in the division just because they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Matt Ryan, they've got a few good receivers, they got a decent defense, and they're playing the Texans, who I don't think the Texans are an 0-17 team, but I definitely think they're a 4 or 5 win team. So I figured that this was not going to be a win for the Texans. And that's why I
Yes.
went with the Colts.
I hate games ending in a tie, and, like, I feel like it's Like, it's not hard to explain. Yeah, the Colts are gonna beat the Texans. That's just my opinion. Like, the Texans are not very good. They haven't been terrible this year. I mean, obviously the Colts have been really lackluster this year. Jonathan Taylor, I figured he was gonna be that guy starting off, and I mean, he did have he had 31 carries in this game.
Oh, he did. That's a
30,
lot.
yeah, 31 carries. He averaged 5 and he had a touchdown, but it's like I don't know about the Texans. Like, I feel like they're going to have another top 5 pick, and to say that Lovey Smith is there this next year, I would be surprised. I feel like he's going to be the fall guy for them again. I think they were in trouble for something. They were in trouble for the Deshaun Watson stuff, and they've got what 2 first-round picks next year, and the Browns are probably going to be a bottom half team. Like, talking draft wise, they'll probably be in the 20 range ish, maybe.
I would agree with it. Granted, my one thought on this season, from what we've seen so far, and it might have not been this going into the season, but I would be surprised if there's any team at the end of the season who has less than 3 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see. There's no team that is gonna go 0-17. Um, I don't think the Texans are terrible, but I mean, I think 3 wins, maybe 4.
Well, are there any winless teams right now?
Um, I don't
Because
think so.
we are going into week 4. There might be like 1 or 2 0-3 teams. But like I can't think of many teams that are 0-3.
I can look up the standings real quick.
The Texans, I think they lost, but they're 0-2-1, if anything.
So, okay, the Raiders are 0-3 and the Texans are 0-2-1.
Okay, but I'm not concerned about the Raiders at the end of the day.
No, they'll get a win.
Going 0-17. If the Raiders went 0-17, I would be so confused. They would be They would be the best team ever to go 0-17.
Yeah, that I don't see it happening. They'll get some wins here. I think I love Josh McDaniels. Like, I really like him. I was hoping Bill would retire and Josh McDaniels would take over. I've got a lot of faith in him. I just don't know how they haven't found a win yet. It's kind of puzzling to me.
Yeah, but they've played good teams every week. Well, I'll take that back. They played good teams 2 weeks and then 1 week. Well, we'll go over all their games here
Yeah.
today, so we'll talk about that then. But yeah, but what is it? Tennessee Titans versus the Giants. I mean, I have not been high on the Titans since they were the #1 seed. I knew the Bengals were going to beat them in the playoffs, and like I'm not high on the team. The Titans probably have one of the most overrated offensive lines, and they're not even that overrated. It's just they don't have a good offensive line. And that hurts Derrick Henry. That hurts the whole offense. But they're playing the New York Giants. And I just figured the Tennessee Titans were going to do better. Not much to it.
Too. Because I wasn't high on the Titans. They're around with the experience he has in the NFL. I think he's definitely going to be good. As for Ryan Tannehill, well, I never really have been. He had that one really good season. I sure that he becomes a starting quarterback here soon.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I definitely think Burks. I mean, we're going to our week 4, and I'm half tempted to put in Burks over Juju Smith-Schuster this week because I feel like he's gonna go off.
Yeah.
But I'll figure that out later. But there's just a lot of question mark around that Titans team.
100%.
But kind of going into 2 other questionable teams, the Packers, the Vikings. I know week 1 I picked the Packers over the Vikings, just because I I looked back to the Vikings losing to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush as their quarterback, thinking the Vikings just aren't that team. Justin Jefferson is good, but he can't be their entire offense. And he has Dalvin Cook with him, but that's their offense right there. They don't have a great offensive line. They have Kirk Cousins as their QB, and they just don't have a lot. And the Vikings refuse to use Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison as a duo. If they did that, the Vikings would be better in my opinion. That Dalvin Cook plays till he gets injured, and then Alexander Mattison comes in and plays as our RB1 for a team, and he does an amazing job. If you look at the Cowboys or the Browns who run two running backs, those teams typically do pretty good in the run game when they're running with two running backs. And Dalvin Cook's a good guy on the field, but when you have two running backs, you're mixing things up, you're making sure your guy stays healthy. And the Vikings won't do that. I think that's what they need to go to like the next step up. But the Packers, they have no good wide receivers, and I say no good wide receivers. Part of that is Aaron Rodgers' fault. That he says there's no chemistry between him and these young guys, but he doesn't try to make that connection.
I mean, he skipped preseason and everything, and I get that he's a veteran, but like you have a whole new receiving core except for Randall Cobb returning. I mean, Sammy Watkins is a vet, but they haven't played together.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of that I think is on Aaron. But I felt the Packers were still going to be better than the Vikings, and I thought last year's Saints versus Packers Week 1 was just a fluke. But maybe the Packers just aren't a good first game team. But so I
Have a top cornerback in the league and you don't put your best guy on him. That's kind of puzzling to me. I don't know if maybe they were. I really don't have an answer. I don't know why. I figured Aaron Rodgers would get it done. And
yeah.
I thought Minnesota would be a good team, but I just didn't think they'd get it done week 1 against the Packers because of Aaron Rodgers. But obviously that wasn't the case. And then one more thing before we move on, which I thought was also kind of puzzling, was Aaron Jones was like he didn't play much in that game. I don't know why, because Aaron Jones is a great receiving back, but A.J. Dillon had more receptions than him and more yards in the receiving game, and he had more touches as well. So I think A.J. Dillon might be taking over as RB1 here soon. I'd say they're probably both sharing most of the reps, but I've seen A.J. Dillon getting a lot more touches this year than he did last year.
Yeah, you see, I don't know about that. That I don't watch many Packers game. That if there's like other game on over the Packers game, I'm probably gonna watch that. That, in my opinion, the Packers are typically too shown on TV. But like the one Packers game where I've really watched was that game Aaron Jones got more reps. I definitely think that A.J. Dillon fits a goal line stance better than Jones because Jones is going to be able to pull off those long runs where Dillon isn't. But they might go from a 70-30 rep share to probably a 50-50. And we see A.J. Dillon in the backfield a lot more when they've still got 80 yards to go. But I think we'll see how the Packers play throughout the year. So let's see. Our next game was Chiefs versus Cardinals. Oh yeah, for this game, people were like, "Oh, the Chiefs aren't going to be that team this year." They lost Tyreek Hill, got Juju Smith-Schuster. I figured that was a pretty even trade. That they're still losing stuff with Hill, but that they were still going to be a good team, better than the Cardinals. That the Cardinals are kind of falling apart from the inside, in my opinion. So I went with the Chiefs. I guess there's not really too much to say about that from
Yeah,
there.
that game really there isn't a lot to say. The only thing that I'll touch on to keep it kind of short and sweet was Clyde Edwards-Helaire was used a lot more than I thought he was going to be used. Scored on the goal line run and then got a shovel pass and scored. Um, Other than that, yeah, I mean the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I thought there'd be a little bit of a drop off, which I don't know if there necessarily has been a whole lot of a drop off. Patrick Mahomes is still that guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that whole division is a tough division.
Yeah, that's probably that's the toughest division in the NFL right now. Like, let's just be honest, it really is.
It definitely is. And, I picked the Raiders over the Chargers. And the only reason I picked the Raiders over the Chargers is because, and I'm sure we'll share this at some point, is we picked the entire season in the division. And I kind of just went with the Raiders over the Chargers because I had picked that the Raiders would win the game over the Chargers. But had I had a chance to change it, I probably would have changed the Chargers. That I felt initially the Raiders with Devontae Adams were going to do pretty good, but that looking at the two of these teams, I feel like they're the same team, just different players in a sense. That they have the potential to do the same amount.
That game
Yeah.
was 24-19. Really, the big stat line, and this is another dynasty thing. Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett had a touchdown. He looked pretty good. I figured he would be decent. Um, I mean, Justin Herbert looked good. I don't think the Raiders are bad. I mean, look, it's 24-19. The Chargers, I have the Chargers winning the Super Bowl. It sucks that their left tackle Rashawn Slater went out. That definitely hurts them a lot.
That
And,
changes a lot.
and yeah, and I hate it. And then I guess coming out today too, it's 10-2 of 22. Um, Joey Bosa is supposed to be out. They're saying 8 to 10 weeks potentially.
Well, Keenan Allen got hurt in this game and he's still not back.
Yeah, that's why the target share has been good for Gerald Everett, which I've been, talking about fantasy again. I've been trying to move him just because he's 28. I'm rebuilding, but um, Mike Williams, he had a big week too, which we'll talk about here soon.
Yeah. Well, in this next game, the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys, I knew there was no way the Cowboys were going to win this game. And I figured this game was going to be a lot worse than the game a year ago, where it was the opener of the season, Buccaneers-Cowboys. I knew that game was not going to be as good as this one. Or like this one was not going to be as good as that one. That the Buccaneers just had a more well-rounded team, that the Cowboys do have a good defense, but their offense is just so questionable, especially with Dak coming back. You don't know if he's going to be healthy or not. And Mike McCarthy is not that guy. Kellen Moore is a great play caller until you need a situational offense, and he crumbles. Now, Dan Quinn, I think he's that guy in Dallas. If Dallas really wants to make a step forward and actually try to make a run, that Dan Quinn needs to be the head coach of that team. The Cowboys, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I hate watching the Cowboys sometimes because they're such an undisciplined team. The amount of penalties they get, the amount of small, simple mistakes they make. I'm just watching them, and it's like, I knew there was no way that they were going to beat the Buccaneers.
Man, this was the one game where I I tossed it back and forth, and I kept saying, "Don't." don't doubt Brady, don't doubt Brady. And I was like, you know what? Let's go with the Cowboys because I think they have a very talented team. I was like, I think they've got a great chance to do something here. I think they could get Tampa Bay week 1 if they open up on fire. And that wasn't the case, and I learned my lesson. I shouldn't bet against Brady. Um, I won't do it again. I've learned my lesson, and I also learned don't bet on the Cowboys because if you do, they might or will disappoint you. So that's all I've got for that game.
And you say that about the Cowboys, but I'm sure we'll have that conversation again the next 2 weeks when it's the opposite of that. But
Exactly.
the last game, the Broncos versus the Seahawks. You know, Denver they had the running backs, they had the wide receivers, they had the quarterback. Their defense is nothing much to talk about, but they're playing the Seattle Seahawks, who did not have the quarterback. Now, granted, I believe Geno Smith is not one of the worst two quarterbacks in the league. Like if you're trying to figure out who is the 32nd worst quarterback, it's not Geno. Who's the 31st? It's not Geno. Is he the 30th worst or the 30th quarterback in the NFL? No, this is where we could start debating for sure. That he plays decent, but he's a smarter guy. But and he has DK, he has Lockett, but they just don't have much of anything in Seattle. So I figured the Broncos were going to win. Now, I figured this game was going to be like a 17-10, 17-14 type of game. That was going to be a close game because the Broncos are new in a sense. They need some time to figure things out. So I figured it was going to be a close-ish game. I didn't think it was going to be 28-0, but I figured it was going to be a close game. And that the Seahawks just aren't that team right now going into the season.
With this one, I think the Broncos have the better team. I think Russell Wilson could have played better. I mean, obviously they lost. Everybody could have played better. I think if you're going to place blame on anybody, it's got to be Nathaniel Hackett with the field goal.
Yeah. Oh, what a terrible call.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that Brandon McManus, like, he's a great kicker, but you have Russell Wilson, like, go for it. And they hired a game manager, like a game management staff member, like literally the week after or 2 weeks after. So now they've got somebody helping with game management.
Yeah, and it wasn't there's 3 seconds left, you need a Hail Mary to win. It's no, you need to go, what was it, 5 or 6 yards?
It wasn't a lot.
You get a first down and you have 45 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, that was puzzling to me. I don't know. Like, you have the players, like, you have great offensive weapons, so go get the first.
Yeah.
Just go get the first.
Yeah. Okay, well now we'll kind of move into the results. I know we talked about the scores and stuff, but this is kind of how we did. Buffalo. I mean, I think Buffalo played better than anybody was expecting to against the Rams. And I'm gonna go back real quick, talk about my point system I created. So my point system is, you get one game right, you get 1 point. You get 2 games right, you get 3 points. So you're taking the 2 from the 2 right and adding it to the 1 from your total from the last time. So you get 3 games right, well, you're going to take the 3 and the 3, 6. Same with here, 4, 6, 10. So, if you go 9 and 7, you're going to get 45 points. Plus, if you get a full week right, you get 10 points. We have a par system that I take all 8 people who do our picks, and I kind of put an average in there. And if you meet that average, you get on par, and you'll get 5 points. If you are under that score, or if the par goes 8 and 8, and you go 9 and 7, you're going to be under par, get 10 points. And if you go 7 and 9, you're going to be over par, not going to get any. Then if you get first, you get 3 points. Second is 2 points. Third is 1 point. But so if you go 16 right, you're getting 136 points, and you're gonna average about 839 points. Now, nobody in our history has ever gotten that. The best we've ever had was I think 13-2 was the best record I've ever had in this system, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. 1 year with 4 people, and now this year with 8. But that's kind of what our point system looks like. Let's see. I know now we'll go over our points. So I got 1 right, so I got 1 point. You got 1 wrong, so got 0 points. And then the Falcons Saints game, that was a heartbreaker because it was 27-26, and of course, Falcons blew the lead. And I got that wrong, and you got that right. And then, of course, 49ers lost. Bengals lost. The 49ers lost pretty badly. Bengals lost overtime, which was a surprise to both of us. The Eagles ended up winning, so you got your second right. So, got 3 points. So you both had the Dolphins, Ravens, and Commanders win. So now I'm at 4 right, you're at 5 right. You got the Browns right. Both got the Colts and Texans wrong. We both had Packers, both had the Chiefs. You had the Chargers beating the Raiders, which, like we said, was a pretty close game. That was 24-19. I got Tampa correct. That it was a low-scoring game, 19-3. That there was a lot of field goals in there. So I got my 6th win, and you got your 7th loss or 7th wrong. But then we had the Broncos, Seahawks, and 17-16. Seahawks won. Ended up finishing the week. I was 6-10. You were 8-8.
Not a bad week for me. If I could go back, I would have changed my freaking Cowboys pick. But who would have thought? Who would have thought Tom Brady would have pulled it through? Not me.
Yeah, I probably would have changed the Chargers Raiders pick. But I like the Lions. They lost in the last few minutes.
Yeah, that was.
Falcons lost in the last few minutes. The Bengals lost in the last few minutes. So it was close, but I guess overall you took 4th. And you were let's see. I was over par, you were over par. I took 7th at 56 points. You took 4th at 120 points. So let's see, that's kind of what our total looks like for me and you. 56 points, 6-10. You were 128-8. And then I don't have all the other people's stats, but this is kind of just what our system looked like. My friends Brad and Josh both tied for first at 225 points at 10-6. Friend Mallory in our league, she went 9-7, had 165 points. Then Carson, Neal, and Hunter in here, they all 3 tied for 4th at 120, 8-8. And then me and my friend Tyler both tied for 7th at 56 points, 6-10.
Can you go back to the last one with all the wins and losses? So let's see. So I got the Saints, Eagles, Dolphins, Ravens, Commanders, Browns, Packers, Chiefs, and Chargers. Oh, I got 9 right.
You got 9 right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, you did. Let's see. Where was my mistake?
I couldn't even tell you.
2, 3.
4, 5, 6.
Ah, I see. Right here.
Oh, the Packers game. How about that?
Oh, wait a second. No, the Packers lost.
Oh, that's what it was. I was so confused. I was like, I thought I only got 8 right. I was like,
oh,
the
yeah,
Packers
that's right. The
won?
Vikings won that week, so I made the mistake when I was going in and filling that out.
Okay, I was confused for a second. I was like, wait, we got 1 more right than we thought. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was my bad. Yeah.
That confused the crap out of me. I was like, wait,
I
dude.
need to fix it. Because I typically go over this like 4 or 5 times to make sure I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I made this right here last night.
Yeah.
Just to quickly show comparisons. I hope I don't have any more issues. But
All right, let's go.
yeah.
Let's go to week 2. Let's see how we did on week 2.
So here are our week 2 games: Chiefs, Chargers, Jets, Browns, Lions, Commanders, Buccaneers, Saints, Giants, Panthers, Patriots, Steelers, Jaguars, Colts, Dolphins, Ravens, Rams, Falcons, Niners, Seahawks, Boys, Bengals, Broncos, Texans, Cardinals, Raiders, Packers, Bears, Bills, Titans, Eagles, Vikings. So starting off the week, Chiefs versus Chargers. I thought the Chargers were going to be the better team, but I just felt the Chiefs were going to have more gas in their tank, and they were going to be able to beat the Chargers. That they had a little bit more talent. That I'm not super high on the Chargers, but Starting to watch the game, I'm like, I regret my pick. I think the Chargers are gonna win, but I didn't change. I couldn't change it. But I thought about, if I had the opportunity, I might. But I thought Chiefs were just gonna be the better team, and they ended up being the better team.
Yeah, I'm really high on the Chargers this year. So when I was going through this pick, I this was a hard one for me, but I wanted to stick to my guns with the Chargers and say that they might get a win out of this one. This was the Mike Williams game where he went off for 8 catches, 113 yards, and 1 touchdown. But in the end, Chiefs win. And I think this was this a Monday night game or a Thursday night game?
Yeah, this was the Monday night game. It was 27-24. And, Chiefs just it was a close game that the Chiefs won there at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It was a close one. It was a fun game to watch, but of course it was the first Thursday night football game. I was watching it on my phone because I didn't have the login information for my Amazon Prime. I was just like, how like trying to figure out how to watch it. But and this next game, the Browns versus Jets, this is a game I wish I could have watched.
Oh,
I
I
picked the
know.
Browns over the Jets because it was hard to judge who was gonna win this game. I just felt the Browns were better because they had the running backs. That's the only reason I went with the Browns. Is I'm like, you know what? Their defenses are about tied. Their wide receivers are about tied. Their quarterbacks. Jets probably have a little better quarterback, but the Browns have three great running backs that they can throw in and do good. Brees Hall's unproven, and Carter's okay. So I went the Browns.
I chose this one based off Joe Flacco was playing, and the Jets aren't very good, and Cleveland has Nick Chubb, and they have Miles Garrett and Kareem Hunt, and they lose at the end. Joe Flacco had a freaking amazing game with 307 pass yards, 4 touchdowns. Um, and I think next week is the one. Week 3 is where Garrett Wilson goes off. I think I think if the Jets can get Zach Wilson back, I think they might finish third in the division over the Patriots. I literally am a Patriots hater this year. I'm a Patriots fan slash hater, and the fact that I don't think the Patriots are going to be that good this year.
I don't think they will be very good, especially. See, I've never really seen Hoyer play much, so he might be able to go in and do okay, but I think the Jets could take third in the division.
I think so too.
I don't think we'll do it today, probably, but if we have more time at a later point, we can go over our predictions for the season and our division, and kind of
Yeah.
look at our thoughts on that. But no, Jets won 31-30 for this game. I don't think that if this game play happened again, I don't think the Jets would win it. I think the Browns would.
Yeah,
That
Browns would
Jacoby
win it
made
again.
Jacoby made a few mistakes. I think he wish he could take back, but it was a good game. But I just felt Browns were better, like we said. But
Yeah.
next game, the Lions Commanders. The Lion. Actually, I'm gonna compare the Eagles to Commanders real quick. The Lions almost beat the Eagles, and the Eagles were playing and the Lions are now playing the Commanders. I figured if the Eagles played the Commanders, the Eagles would blow the Commanders out of the water. So because of this, I went Lions over Commanders. That the Commanders beat the Jags. It was the closest-ish game, and the Lions barely lost to the Eagles. So I figured the Lions were going to be the better team in this game against the Commanders. That there's not too much about talking about players individually. I just figured the Lions as a team were better than the Washington Commanders as a team.
This game again chose based off of the D line that the Commanders have, not realizing that honestly the Detroit Lions have a good offensive line. But once again, I was looking at QBs too, and really both QBs didn't have a bad day. But looking at the box score, Amon-Ra literally had the most rushing yards and receiving yards on the team, and he had two
Wow.
touchdowns. So, I mean, that one, I don't really have a whole lot to say. The Lions are a lot better than I predicted.
Actually, I will say a lot about this game. It told us that the Lions are a lot like the Falcons. They are not a good fourth quarter team.
Yeah, 100%.
But the Lions and the Falcons, if you compare the two of them, the Lions have the ability to put up more points going into that fourth quarter than the Falcons do. But I think the Lions might lose a couple games because their fourth quarter is not the best. But they have time to figure that out. And the next game is the Buccaneers versus the Saints. And a lot of people were saying the Saints were going to win because the Saints have beaten the Buccaneers the past several years. But looking at it, again, I'm not high on the Saints defense. But the Buccaneers, they didn't have Chris Godwin, they didn't have Julio Jones, they only had Mike Evans, and they don't have Gronkowski at tight end. They have Brait or something.
Yep, Brait.
So I figured that that even though they were missing wide receivers, I figured the Buccaneers were going to be the better team because the Saints just don't have it. So I want Buccaneers because of that.
So I went to this game. Typically, the Saints have Brady's number. I did choose the Buccaneers because I learned my lesson against the Cowboys. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to doubt Brady. I was a little iffy just because, he doesn't have Chris Godwin. Rob Gronkowski is not there anymore. And Mike Evans gets ejected, and then he's playing with Rashad Perriman, Scott Miller, and Russell Gage. There's not a whole lot to say. It was a great game. The Saints were leading. It was a scoreless second quarter. Nobody scored in the second quarter. Saints scored a field goal in the first, and then fourth quarter hit, and Brady just took over.
Well, it was 3-0, and then it was 3-3 for a while. It wasn't until Evans got ejected that the Buccaneers really started getting rolling. But Marshawn Lattimore, when he got ejected as well, that opened up a hole in that Saints defense. That allowed for 2 touchdowns?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Olave looked good in that game too.
He did.
Honestly, if you're placing blame on anybody on this game, it would be Jameis. He threw 3 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6.
What's funny about that is I thought last year when Jameis Winston got hurt against the Buccaneers, that was one of the best games I had seen him in since college.
I'm watching I had the Vikings game pulled up, and somebody's getting carted off. I think it's Patrick Peterson, but I can't tell. Number 6 for the Vikings.
Peterson. See, I pulled off a game.
Who's number 6 for the Vikings?
Scores. Number 6 for the Vikings. I'm not quite sure.
Lewis Seen. Oh, that's their rookie. He was laying down. Got carried.
Yeah, and that game, I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit in a minute, but it's not, well, it's first quarter. It's actually looking exactly how I expected it to be going.
Yep.
But we'll talk about the second. It's a Europe game, so look, those fans look pretty excited.
Yeah, those games have to be really good with atmosphere just because they don't get to watch games live like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's see, what, yeah, so, what was that, Buccaneers game? Yeah, that was a good game. So, next game, Panthers-Giants. The Giants beat the Titans. I figured that was, the Titans weren't great, and that it was kind of a fluke that the Giants won. So, I figured the Panthers were the better team. Because, I am not high on Daniel Jones, but I don't think Daniel Jones is the worst quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's the very good, but he's proven me wrong so far this season. Saquon Barkley, he's doing good. But I just figured the Panthers had the defense to stop the Giants, and they had the offense to put up some points. I figured this was going to be a kicking game. A lot of punts, a lot of field goals, maybe a touchdown, and the team that got a touchdown would probably win. So I went with the Panthers just because I felt they were a little better than the Giants, but it was a close game for me.
I honestly couldn't even tell you why I chose the Giants for this one. I literally don't have much to say just because I don't remember why I chose the Giants. It was probably because of Saquon Barkley, and I figured McCaffrey was going to have a bad game. I think Baker is... I like Baker a little bit more than Daniel Jones, but
Yeah.
I seriously can't explain this pick. I don't know why I chose the Giants, but I did, and I
But
got
and
it
hey,
right.
you were right because it ended 16-19. That the Panthers started off with that early what was it, interception touchdown or fumble touchdown?
I see. I can't even remember. I didn't get to watch that game.
See, that's the thing is I don't. I have red zone, so like I'm able to watch like parts of these games, but like I don't watch them too much. And I mean, if the Cowboys game's on, I watch that.
Yeah.
If the Bills game's on, I watch that. But yeah, I think I recall it being a decent game. But yeah, Giants came out on top, which our next game is the Steelers Patriots, and my answer for why I went with the Steelers, it is pretty easy to explain because I picked the Steelers because I felt the Steelers were a good team. They beat the Bengals, and that the Patriots are just not a good team. And I went with the Steelers. That the Steelers have everything that the Patriots didn't.
That I mean, you hit the nail on the Steelers are a better team. They've got. I would say the only thing that I would maybe say they don't have better is you could argue that Mac Jones is a better QB than Mitchell Trubisky. But other than that, like running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, maybe not. But their defense, the Steelers' defense is really good. So
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the positions, the Steelers looks like a better team, and I think was week 2 where T.J. Watt got hurt. He got hurt in this game, tore his pec.
Yeah, he tore his pet on a bad play.
Yep.
Think so, yeah. But yeah, and of course the Patriots won 17-14. That I was shocked. I mean, it wasn't really shocked, but it was like, wow, maybe the Patriots aren't as bad as I was expecting. Oh yeah. Now this next game, I picked the Colts because I figured there was no way the Colts were losing to the Jaguars. And I don't think I have much reason for this game of why I picked it. I didn't sit down and look at this and I'm like, wow, I got to think about this. I'm like, oh, the Colts are playing the Jaguars. The Jaguars played decent last week, but it's the Colts. I'm going with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts look like a better team. They are a better team, but they lost 24-0 to the Jags. Yeah. I don't have an explanation for the Colts. I really don't. I don't understand what they are missing because I think Matt Ryan is the game manager and
Frank Wright.
And that's what I was about to say. It's the only thing
I don't think he's the guy. I think he's like Mike McCarthy. He's not that guy. And
no.
I think Mike McCarthy is good enough to keep the team where they're at. And maybe like the team will drop a little. But Frank Wright, I mean, looking at the Colts last year, they barely didn't make it to the playoffs. But looking at it this year, they're just not good. There's no reason why they're doing as bad as they do. There's no reason the Jaguars and Texans should have a shot at #1 seed in the division. But the Titans and the Colts aren't playing good. Now, I think the Texans are going to lose their shot at the division. But the Jags might actually win it because of the Colts and the Titans.
Yeah, the difference there is the coaching on those teams. Because let's be honest, the roster, the Colts have a way better roster. Just looking at it.
Yeah. And they might have gotten rid of Carson Wentz a little too fast. And I don't disagree that if I had to take Matt Ryan over Carson Wentz, I'd take Matt Ryan. But they put all the blame on Carson Wentz for why they didn't win last year. And now Matt Ryan's in here, and he's doing different but the same in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've said what I've got to say about that game. I'm disappointed in the Colts this year.
Yeah,
I
but
really
now
am.
this next game, Dolphins Ravens. I was not high in the Dolphins, but I was not high in the Ravens going into the season. But I figured this was gonna be a good game. But I felt the Dolphins had the edge on the Ravens, just because they are more versatile team, and that the Ravens don't have the DBs, and that if Tua can hit Tyreek Hill and can hit Waddle, that this was gonna be a high-scoring game. But the Dolphins don't have the run defense, So, like I just said, this was going to be a high-scoring game. But I want the Dolphins because I felt that a better run game is not going to beat out a better passing game. And I'm pretty sure that reflects what happened. Yeah, 42-38. And of course you went with the Ravens, so
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't sold on Tua, and Tua had 6 touchdowns that game. Um, I figured Lamar. I mean, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but I think Lamar broke off a big run. He did. Yeah, he did. He had 9 carries for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. I want to say the run was like over 40 or 50 yards. I just thought that the Ravens would win it, but I was wrong about that one. Tua had a freaking career day.
yeah, he's been proving people wrong for sure. And it was a good game. Like I would go back and watch that game after the season for sure. And going into our next game, what was that? The Rams Falcons. This is a pretty quick explanation. It's the Rams playing the Falcons. I figured the Rams had everything better than the Falcons, and I figured the Rams were gonna win.
Yeah, that was it was funny because that was a close game. It was 31-27, and if I remember correctly, yeah, Drake London had a touchdown that game. I'm pretty high on Drake London. I think he's gonna have a good career.
If I
Like
had
I
a dynasty
said,
league, I'd take him. If I had a
yeah, I
dynasty
would
league.
too. I think he's gonna be a great player. I'm actually trying to trade for him right now in my dynasty league. Funny you say that. But yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of self-explanatory. It's the Rams versus Falcons. Like you're gonna choose the Rams pretty much. Let's be honest. They're a great team still.
Yeah. And it was a close game, 27-31. The Rams almost became the Falcons and blew a lead. But I think that game proved what the Falcons can do. And that me being higher on the Falcons, a lot of people thought the Falcons might be the worst team in the NFL this year. I didn't think that. I figured they'd be a bottom 16 team, but they'd be in the higher 8 of those teams. And so far I think they're proving me a little right. And a little wrong. I think they might be more of a mid 8 in the bottom 16, but we'll see. Now, the next game, 49ers Seahawks. I went with the 49ers because I did not think the Seahawks were going to have an amazing week. And 49ers losing to the Bears, I figured that was a fluke. The weather conditions were bad. I figured the 49ers were the 49ers were the better team in every aspect. That there's not one aspect that the Seahawks are better than the 49ers. So I want 49ers.
Yep, this is the game that Trey Lance got hurt.
And out for the season. I mean, that's...
Yep. Dynasty quarterback right there, just gone.
I was telling my friend, who's a 49ers fan, who he kept saying they need to trade Jimmy, need to trade Jimmy. I'm like, they're not going to trade him. They're not going to trade him. He's like, yeah, he's just not good for the team anymore. They don't need him. I'm like, okay, what if Lance gets injured? He's like, oh, he's not going to get injured. They're going to protect him. I'm just like, okay, well, it's dumb if they get rid of him. Well, end up signing him, and the 49ers are so lucky that they kept him.
No kidding. I did for Trey Lance. It was a great opportunity for Jimmy G, and he played good, and they got the win out of that game.
Yeah. Let's see. Next game is Bengals Cowboys, and I picked the Bengals because I figured they didn't play the best against the Steelers, but if I had to guess, if the Steelers played the Cowboys, the Steelers would win. So I figured Bengals would beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys lost Dak Prescott, so I figured the Bengals were going to be the better team. That I knew this game was going to be a close game, that the Cowboys defense was going to be hurting the Bengals, and that but Cooper Rush was the starting quarterback, and I've not been high on Cooper Rush. Now I'm starting to change that, but I just figured the Bengals were going to have more in them to beat the Cowboys, and the Bengals lost 17-20, Cowboys won, but they started to make a comeback once they figured things out. But I just figured the Bengals were a better team.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Bengals are a better team. I looked at it from the quarterback perspective. Cooper Rush, Joe Burrow. You're gonna choose Joe Burrow. I mean, let's be honest, it's Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Looking at it though, I mean, defense won the Cowboys that game. I think Joe Burrow was sacked 6 or 7 times. running for his life, even with that new offensive line they've got. And La'el Collins isn't looking like a bodyguard to me. He's looking like a swinging door.
Yeah.
Michael Parsons, I think, had 2 in that game. He had a good game. And CeeDee Lamb, he did all right in that game, but Noah Brown was the one who came up big for him.
Yeah. But Parsons has been doing amazing. In my opinion, he's a much better defensive end than he is a linebacker.
Yeah, they need to let him rush off the edge. I mean, you want, like, this league is so QB and edge rusher driven, so why not put Micah there because he's so good at it?
Yeah, or just change his title to linebacker slash edge rusher.
Yeah.
I mean, because he has the ability to drop back into pass coverage if you need him to. But you also want him to be that guy who's darting at that quarterback.
100%.
And that was a tough game for me because I had Joe Burrow as my quarterback in my main fantasy league.
Yeah,
And of
that's
course I'm a
tough.
Dallas fan, so I'm like, oof.
Torn.
Yeah. Well, our next game is Broncos-Texans, and, even though the Broncos lost to the Seahawks, I just figured the Broncos were a better team than the Texans. That they had the better defense, they had the better offense, they had the better QB, they had the better... They 100% had the better wide receivers. There's no question there. They had the better running backs for sure, better quarterback for sure. So I picked Broncos all the way on that game. No questions asked.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to explain for this one. I mean, the Broncos have a great team comparative to what the Texans have. So, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer looking at it from that perspective. I guess really the key performance would be Cortland Sutton. Had 7 receptions for 122 yards. Jerry Jeudy got hurt in that game, so... and I think he came back, played week 3 anyways, but yeah, he did get hurt in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess there's not too much more to say about that game. I mean,
It was just kind
our
of
next-
like, whatever.
Our next game is Raiders-Cardinals, and after watching last week's games, the Chiefs against the Cardinals and the Chargers against the Chiefs, I just felt the Raiders were going to have a little bit more in them than the Chargers would. I figured it was going to be a close game, like a 1-touchdown game, but that the Raiders with Devontae Adams were going to be able to beat upon the Cardinals a little, especially with the Cardinals maybe not having the best run game or wide receivers. In their defense being okay, Kyler Murray being questionable sometimes. I just figured the Raiders were more stable, so I went with the Raiders.
With that game, it came down to Isaiah Simmons blowing up Hunter Renfrow, and then Byron Murphy picking up the ball, running it back, and he almost got rid of it too quick at the goal line. That was really close. But Hunter Renfrow with 2 fumbles late in the game, I mean, that's just like uncharacteristic. And I understand, you throw it to him, he has 1 fumble, you're like, okay, he fumbled once, there's no way he fumbles again. And he gets absolutely clobbered by Isaiah Simmons, which is one of my favorite prospects in the whatever draft he was in. I really like him a lot.
Yeah, but if you look at both fumbles, neither were necessarily his fault. They were great plays by the defense punching him out.
They really were. He got jarred on that last one by Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, and no matter your ball security, when you're catching a pass and you're turning into it and you're running, sometimes you just take the hit. Now, he probably shouldn't have. He tried to put in the extra effort to get a few more yards. I think that's what got him.
Yeah.
But no, what is it right now? The Saints Viking games is now 7-7.
Yeah, 7-7. Minnesota's got ball.
Yeah, but let's see. Next we go to the Packers-Bears, and I mean, Rodgers owns the Bears. I figured even though the wide receivers aren't the best, the Packers just lost, that the Packers are not losing to the Bears. That the Bears, I knew the Bears could put up some points on the Packers, but I figured it was going to be, Packers were going to double the Bears points. And 27-10, I was right to think that. But
yeah, Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears. Like, whenever I thought, like, I was going through this pick, I was like, all right, so Bears beat 49ers, kind of insane. Packers lose week 1 to the Vikings, pretty good. And I was like, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to lose this one against the Bears. He literally said he owns the Bears, and well, he proved that to be the point.
Yeah.
17-point win.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what is it? Next game, Bills Titans. I just figured the way the Bills played, they were gonna crush the Titans. That if the Titans played like they did against the Giants, Bills would crush them.
You were
And
right.
you know, 41-7.
Yeah. Josh Allen played good, but Ryan Tannehill did not play good. He had 2 interceptions. Traylon Burks had the most receiving yards on that team, but he only had 47. And Derrick Henry, Hassan Haskins almost had as much touches as Derrick Henry.
Dude, but Henry looked terrible that game. I mean, he looked like they found some big 40-year-old to start running the ball. That he would take a few steps and he was down. It just looked bad. It looked like, I mean, it almost looked like they found some guy to pretend to be Derrick Henry.
And it also helps that Stephon Diggs had 3 touchdowns.
Dude, this week for me, because I had Diggs and I had Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Jeez.
It was a good week, and I had another wide receiver or something, but this was a good week fantasy football for me.
Yeah.
But no, and then what is it? Vikings Eagles. Like I said, I was not super high on the Eagles, but also the way the Vikings played against the Packers, I liked the way they played. So I figured the Vikings were gonna keep it pretty competitive, and they were gonna have just enough with Justin Jefferson to beat the Eagles because of I think Justin Jefferson was the one reason I went with the Vikings for this game. Was I figured Justin Jefferson could destroy the Eagles secondary, and boy was I wrong.
Yeah, this game, I mean, like I said, I've been high on the Eagles, so Jalen Hurts, he had 333 passing yards.
Yeah.
He had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Jalen Hurts looked really good. With the receiving game, it was very spread out between Quez Watkins, AJ, Devontae, and Dallas. They both had about the same amount of yards. And let's be honest, Darius Slay had 2 interceptions, and he locked up Justin Jefferson.
Well, to be fair with that right there, the problem is someone must have told Kirk Cousins they traded for Darius Slay instead of Rager.
That's what it seemed like.
That he thought Slay was on his team just in the wrong uniform and kept throwing to him.
Yeah,
because let's face it, he almost had 4 interceptions that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they had a long pick 6. Darius Slay did. Because I was at work. It was my last day of work. That's why.
Yeah. But it was a close game for sure. But and of course I didn't watch the first half of this game because I was watching the Titans Bills game. So I didn't watch a good bit of it. But no, yeah. Let's see. Kind of look at our scores. So I had the Chiefs. I got the outright. Both of the Browns were wrong. I got the Lions. We both got the Buccaneers, but you got the Giants. Both got the Steelers and Colts wrong. I had the Dolphins. Pulled ahead a little there. Both had the Rams. Both had the 49ers. Both had the Bengals, unfortunately. Both had the Broncos. Both had the Raiders. Both had the Packers. Both had the Bills. And then you had the Eagles. To finalize your score at 8-8, which meant you were on par. That our par score for that week was 8-8. Which meant me going 9-7, I was able to be under the par score and get 10 bonus points. And I finished that week 177. You finished 125. So let's see.
Not a bad week. I'll take 50%.
Yeah, it's not bad. And us as a whole, we haven't been doing great this season on picks. But looking at this kind of puts me at 233, 15, 17, but puts you at 245, 16, 16. Luckily, I was able to stay at my position at 7th place. My poor friend Tyler went to 8 at 112 points. But Hunter, you unfortunately went down to from 4th to 5th. And we're 245, 16, 16, 174 points behind the leader, with me not too far behind you. that it wasn't a great game. Carson over here did amazing. Was able to jump from fourth to first
Jeez.
at 419, 1913. He had a pretty good week. I think he went. I want to say he went 10-6 this week, and he was able to take the lead. And almost everybody went down except for me and Carson.
Gosh, that's insane.
Yeah. Let's see. So here are our week 3 games. So week 3, we had the Steelers at Browns, Texans at Bears, Raiders at Titans, Chiefs at Colts, Bills at Dolphins, Lions at Vikings, Ravens at Patriots, Bengals at Jets, Eagles at Commanders, Saints at Panthers, Jaguars at Chargers, Rams at Cardinals, Falcons at Seahawks, Packers at Buccaneers, Niners at Broncos, Cowboys at Giants. Now this week, I was excited to see everybody's picks because I sent out a Google form for all the picks, and I was pretty excited to see what everybody would pick because there's such a spread this week where almost every single one of these games could have gone either way for people picking. Let's see. So for us, now, I'll explain something real quick. This red line on the Colts, I have a thing where if you take 8th place in a week, which my friend Tyler last week took 8th place, you get a super pick, which means for one game, you're the only person allowed to pick one of these teams. And my friend Tyler picked the Chiefs against the Colts, which meant he was the only person who could pick the Chiefs, which means everybody else picked the Colts. So that's what this red line is for. Now, he ended up being very, very wrong, and it ended up helping us. But yeah, I'll start it off, Steelers versus the Browns. I felt Steelers were the better team. That between the division, even though the Steelers just lost to the Patriots, I thought they were better than the Browns. That, I guess I don't have too much to explain my pick just because besides that I thought the Steelers were better than the Browns.
Yeah, thinking back to this week, I think the big thing for me in choosing this game was looking at the defense, both defenses, and I think, with TJ Watt out, Myles Garrett in, I think that was really my thought process. I know that's not a whole lot of like a big difference, but that was like the main reason I chose the Browns for this game.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fair, and you ended up being right by about 12 points. But yeah. What is our next game? This was a tough one to pick. The Bears versus the Texans.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? The Texans could easily win. But I went Bears just because I felt that Justin Fields is a key factor in this game. I think Justin Fields is going to be able to have what it takes to beat the Texans' offense more than Davis Mills is going to be able to beat the Bears' defense. So I went Bears.
You know what's crazy about that? Justin Fields didn't have a good game either. It was
Yeah,
it
he
was
didn't.
Khalil Herbert that won them
Yeah,
that game.
it really was.
Khalil Herbert, 20 carries, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Justin Fields had 2 interceptions for 106 yards.
Yeah, and I mean, it ended 23-20, Bears winning.
Yeah, I mean, close game. Chose the Bears. Same reason you did. Justin Fields versus Davis Mills. Bears beat the 49ers. Texans are just not very... They don't look very good, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I just went with the Bears.
I agree. And my pick's kind of same for this next one. Raiders versus Titans. The Titans just had not played good. And the Raiders, they lost both games barely. And the Titans had not played good. They didn't play great against the Giants, and they got destroyed by the Bills. But I just figured the Raiders had more in them than the Titans did, so I went Raiders as well.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like, the Raiders should have won this game. It's Devontae Adams. He had a touchdown that game, but Matt Collins had 158 yards receiving. Derrick
Yep.
Henry only 85 yards on the day, touchdown. And Robert Woods had 85 yards, but I mean, really, that game, I don't have a whole lot for this game. I didn't watch this game. But Titans got the win.
Yeah. It was surprising, but it was a close game, 24-22. Um, what is it? Next game I picked the Chiefs over the Colts because you know what? There was no way the Colts were gonna beat the Chiefs. No way. With how the Colts were playing, I wanted Chiefs all the way. A miracle had to happen for the Colts to win, so I went Chiefs. No really questions asked. But of course, I ended up getting the Colts because my friend did our super pick for the Chiefs.
Yep, I mean, same explanation for me. How are the Chiefs going to lose to the Colts when the Colts are 0-1-1 at this point? And they pull it off, and I believe this is the game. Yes, this is the game where one of my favorite prospects in the draft, Jelani Woods, 6'7" tight end out of Virginia Tech, had 2 touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
2 receptions, 2 touchdowns. That's all right. That's not bad at all. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you know, for this game, I want to see this game again. Except, I want to see Sky Moore not muff that punt. I wonder how that would how much that would change the game. Because Colts got it, and they got a 7-0, 7-0 lead.
Yep. Yeah, that game, I don't really have a whole lot for that game, but I loved, like, from a dynasty fantasy perspective and, like, who the prospect is, I freaking love Jelani Woods. Like, he's something else, man. I really like him.
Yeah, and what round did he get drafted to?
It was, I want to say second, and I probably am wrong.
I thought it was third. I think
was it late?
Because there was like no tight ends taken the first 2 rounds.
Let's see.
There's like 1 taken.
Yeah, he was round 3. He was top of the 3rd.
Okay.
Man, yeah, I really liked him coming out of Virginia Tech. I wish somebody.
And Mo Alie-Cox is just not that good.
I mean, he's old. I mean, like,
yeah.
Call spade a spade. He's pretty old now, so.
Yeah, he's just not that good. But man, I think that was the biggest shocker of the week. Which the second biggest shocker of the week is Bills Dolphins. You know, I knew the Dolphins were good, but I didn't think they were Bills good. So I picked the Bills. That a lot had to go wrong for the Dolphins to win, and funny enough, a lot went wrong for the Dolphins, but for the Dolphins, and they were still able to pull off the win because Josh Allen could not get that ball down in time.
Yeah.
I think if this game happens again, the Bills win. If it happens the 3rd time, Bills win.
Looking at the box score, Josh Allen threw 63 balls, 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is where Tua gets hurt. Should have never been allowed to go back into the game that game, but hey, you know, it is what it is.
I have a big issue with all the stuff going around with that. Like, the doctor who just cleared him got fired. And my biggest thing is they've yet to prove that Tua did have a concussion when he got put back in the game. And that, these people, they go under all types of training to be able to clear players and not clear them. So I want to actually see what happened. Because, I played football. I got hit so many times where I got up and I stumbled for my first few steps. And then I'm like, I'm fine. Like, give me a second. I'm up, I'm fine. But there are so many plays where people are shooken up. And I think had that not been Tua, had that been any other player, and they came back in, I think they would have been fine with it. But I think with Tua, now if Tua did have a concussion, they put him back in, yeah. But he came back in and he played really well, not like somebody who just had a concussion.
It's pretty easy to also, like, pass the concussion test, because I've had 2 diagnosed concussions, and, like, the one that I didn't get cleared on, I literally could not remember anything that they were telling me. Like, I forgot my birthday, I forgot my parents' birthday, and my siblings' birthday, and the other one that I got diagnosed with, I could, like, recall some things, but they still deemed that, I had a concussion, which I probably did because I had, like, light sensitivity and stuff, but, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to go into, but, Dolphins win. I was surprised. I mean, like, they're 3-0 at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, yeah, 3-0. They're surprisingly they were looking really good. And Lions played the Vikings next, and I picked the Lions over the Vikings. I probably shouldn't have, but I figured after the Vikings lost to the Eagles, I looked back at that Lions Eagles game, and I'm like, you know what? I think the Lions have a little bit more in them to beat the Vikings. I think they have the win here. That after the way the Vikings just played, Lions could beat them, and I want the Lions because of that.
Um, I strictly went with the Vikings just based off of how Justin Jefferson is, and funny enough, he actually got locked up by Jeff Okuda. Um,
Yeah, Jeff
like
Okuda played amazing that game.
Jeff Okuda played like the pick he was supposed to be. And
Yeah.
granted, he's had injuries, so
Hmm.
it's not all his fault. Um, I don't really have a whole lot for this game other than the other receivers for the Vikings stepped up. I mean,
Oh, I
Osborne
agree.
and Thielen had a touchdown, and Irv Smith was all right. So,
Yeah.
and both running backs, Alexander Madison and Dalvin, both had a touchdown too.
Yeah, and that's because Dalvin Cook got injured that game, and guess what? Alexander Madison came in and did the exact same thing Dalvin Cook did.
Yep.
Let's see. Next game, Ravens versus Patriots. Even though Patriots had won the last week, I wanted to go Ravens. I felt Ravens were a much better team. I wasn't high on them at the beginning of the season, but by this point in the season, I'm like, okay, Ravens are a good team, and they're going to do stuff. So I went with the Ravens over the Patriots. I just figured there's no way the Patriots are gonna stop the Ravens and put up do better than the Ravens. Now I knew the Patriots offense was gonna put up some points because the Ravens still don't have the best defense, but they just have a great offense on the Ravens, and the score reflected that.
Yeah, again, I don't think this Patriots team is that good. Like I said, I could see them finishing fourth in their division, dead last. Lamar Jackson had 4 touchdowns. Mark Andrews had 2. I mean, Lamar Jackson throwing for 4. Well, did he rush for 1? He rushed for 1, threw for 3. Hold
I
on,
think Bateman
that's
had one of those touchdowns as well.
so actually I'm wrong. So Mark Andrews had 2. Duvernay had 1. Josh Oliver had 1. Lamar Jackson had 1 by himself. And then this is Mac Jones gets hurt. You're starting to see Damian Harris get less carries and Ramondre Stevenson starting to get more carries.
Yeah,
Funny enough, Ramondre Harris and Mac Jones all had touchdowns. And Devontae Parker had a big game, but I think the receiving core for the Patriots is just like super lackluster, and it frustrates me. And the 2 tight ends that I was high on, super happy that we signed them, they didn't do anything really.
yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I don't really have much as a fan. It sucks, but yeah. I mean, it was an easy pick for me. Like it was a no-brainer. I looked and I was like, Ravens are gonna win this one.
Oh yeah, pretty easy to pick. Same with Bengals Jets. That
Yeah.
despite the Bengals losing to the Cowboys, I figured the Bengals were going to beat the Jets, so I went Bengals, and that's all I'm need to say about this one.
Yeah, this one's like you said. There's not much to say about it. It's Bengals or the Jets, and the Jets have Joe Flacco. Sure, he had one good game, but yeah, Joe Burrow is that guy.
Yeah, and same thing for Eagles Commanders. I mean, it's the Eagles versus the Commanders. I'm going Eagles just based off how they played. But
Oh my
they're just a
God.
better team. I want Eagles.
Yeah, that game. I watched that game. Dude, that those first couple drives, poor Carson Wentz. That dude was getting killed, like literally
Oh yeah,
getting killed. I think they had a sack for each play. Like the first half of that,
honestly,
they had a play each got a sack. Like I think what Fletcher Cox. It was Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. I
you know,
mean, they
the
were tearing him up.
the worst thing about that is I picked up the Eagles defense and forgot to start them.
That
So I had the
sucks.
49ers defense in, and I'm like, I
Ah,
really wish I put the Eagles in.
yeah,
Which,
that
speaking
sucks.
about defenses for a second, I believe fantasy football should have points available for tackles for loss, even if it's a small amount of points.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
the 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 amount of tackles for loss is crazy. And like I'm like, you need points for that. Even if it's like 0.1 points, it should be like 0.5 or something.
Yeah, they need to get
If,
points for that.
but like, or they do like for every yard, it's a tackle for a loss. It's like or it's like 0.2 for every yard or something.
Yeah.
If it's 20 yards, well then that's what 10 points or something, or not that many, but like there's at least something for tackle for loss. If I were to design my own fantasy football app, I would put in tackle for loss.
Yeah, that needs to be something.
But no, but yeah, it's pretty easy to guess game. Now this next one, not so much. Panthers Saints. I went Saints because I figured I'm not high on the Saints, but the Panthers just had not played great. I figured Saints were gonna win. I figured Jameis was gonna do better than Baker. You know, Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. I'd say now I don't think the two of them are even, but I figured they were gonna play even. That the Saints had a better defense than the Panthers. I think that's what I thought was going to be the deciding factor. That Saints had a slightly better defense. So I picked the Saints because of their defense.
Yeah, I picked the Saints because of their defense as well. If you look at the box score, it's like the Saints look like they should have won based off the box score, but obviously that's not the case. Jameis Winston with 2 interceptions also does not help.
No, it does not. Granted, one of those was not his fault. The wide receiver jumped up, tipped it, and then it was just a free interception.
Yeah.
That's one thing I hate about interceptions. You know, you go back to week 1 of Bills versus the Rams, and Josh Allen had 2 interceptions. You can't tell me that either of those interceptions are his fault. The first one, the wide receiver jumped up to tip it to allow the defender to get it. The second one was an amazing play by the defense that I'm trying to think who caused the interception. I think it was Crowder maybe, but he had the balls in his hand and the defender literally just grabbed it and took it out of his hands, and it was called an interception. And that I wish there was a way to blame interceptions on receivers.
Yeah, I agree. I hate when I see it and it gets pinned on the QB, but like it's not an accurate representation of what happened. Like it was not their fault.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, this quarterback is 12 for 20. I'm like, okay, but 8 of those drops were on the wide receivers.
Yeah, how many of those did the receiver like get it in their hands and just absolutely drop it?
Yeah, I know one of my friends said the best way to balance out a PPR fantasy league is start doing -1 point for every drop a wide receiver has.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I like that. I've never thought of that, but I do like that.
Well, especially it would like, who was it when Watson week 1 had that terrible drop that would have been a touchdown.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, are you really gonna tell Aaron Rodgers, hey, you just had an incomplete pass, that's on you? It's like, no, it's on that fucking wide receiver right there.
Yeah.
But no. But so I think one of those interceptions for Winston wasn't really his fault. But
No.
was it next is Jaguars Chargers, and there's no way I was picking the Jaguars. Chargers are a better team, by far. I went Chargers because they had the better offense and defense. I was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the box score, Eckler, I don't know if what's going on with him this season. He's just not
doing
been
great.
very good. Sony Michel had the most yards out of the backfield, and it was only 22
That's surprising.
yards.
Yeah.
Mike Williams was almost non-existent, except for the fact that he did catch one ball for 15 yards, and it was a touchdown. Without Keenan Allen.
Oh, and Herbert has his hurt ribs. That's one thing about this game.
Forgot about that.
Herbert
Yep.
had his hurt ribs.
Yep. And if you look at the box score as well, James Robinson had 100 yards and a touchdown, and then Trevor Lawrence dispersed the ball to 3 different receivers, each for a touchdown. So they did a good job spreading the field. Chargers should have won that game. Looking at it talent-wise, and then they lose Joey Bosa and Rashawn Slater, so that's gonna hurt them coming into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Chase Daniels didn't play some for the Chargers. I'm a huge Chase Daniel fan. I consider him the best quarterback in the NFL. who graduated from my high school, so that's part of the reason I'm a big fan of
Jeez, your
him.
high school just produces all NFL guys. The closest guy I know that went, I don't even know if I don't have any guys that I know that went to the NFL at my high school.
Yeah.
Must be
Let's
nice.
see. I know one guy I played with is currently, I think he's on the Texans practice squad. I think next year there are some people from my high school who definitely will get into the NFL who I actually played with.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, granted, one of them is not somebody I'm particularly a big fan of. Um, what is it? R.J. Mickens, the Clemson DB or corner, played with him at my high school, so, which I figure he'll get drafted.
Yeah.
But and then I'm hoping T.J. McDaniel, our old running back who plays at SMU, I'm hoping he walks on somewhere for a practice squad. He hasn't had the best college career because of injuries, but I think he has what it takes to be a decent player in the NFL. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm a big Chase Daniels fan. But yeah, let's see. Next game is Rams Cardinals. I picked the Rams because even though the Rams have not been the best this year, I still think the Rams were better than the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are the Rams. Looking at the box score, Kyler Murray had 314 yards. Their offense, where they just, I looking at the box score, did their offense even score? It doesn't look like their offense even scored. So that's obviously a problem. When your offense doesn't score, how are you supposed to win games? Uh,
Yeah.
Cam Akers, Cooper Cup score. I mean, it's the Rams. I mean, they're good. They're Super
Yeah.
Bowl champs last year.
I
They
think
just
Allen
caught the Bills
Robinson,
the worst time.
or I think Allen Robinson had his first decent game with the Rams that week as well.
Yeah.
But no, it was a decent game for sure. Granted, I don't know what side of football you're on Kyle Murray, but the Modern Warfare 2 beta came out that weekend, so a lot of people were like, Murray's gonna play bad this week
Yeah,
because of
I
that.
heard that. Yeah, I've never I've never been the biggest Kyler Murray fan if I'm being honest. I think he's good, but I'm just not like I'm not a big fan.
So Kyler Murray, one of our rivals, was Allen, Texas. The Allen Eagles. Kyler Murray was their quarterback, so we played him a few times. Granted, we lost to him. Basically, we have a long history with that school, and once Kyler Murray took over their offense, we beat them the year before, and then they beat us after that, and then we beat him once he was gone. But he was good in high school. But I can't say he has improved a lot throughout every level, but he just uses his raw skills to be able to do things, but sometimes he makes terrible mistakes.
It's because they had to put a clause in his contract for him to study.
Yeah, so it does bring the question of did he play video games most of the weekend, and did not do great for the game?
You know he didn't stream it. Strange,
Yeah.
but you know he didn't stream it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Memes coming out again.
Oh gosh,
Getting
yeah.
flame for it.
Yeah, so who knows? What is it? Next game, Falcons Seahawks. A lot of people in our group picked the Seahawks. I think we were like 2 of 3 who picked the Falcons. The Falcons were just a better team, I think, than the Seahawks. I knew it was gonna be a close game, but Falcons better quarterback, better offense, slightly better defense. The Eagles or that the Seahawks just weren't as good as the Falcons, so I went Falcons.
Um, yeah, this game I based it off of which quarterback do I like the most, and I do like Marcus Mariota better than I like Geno, and then the
Fair.
supporting cast that Marcus Mariota does have compared to what Geno has, I also like that. Kyle Pitts had a decent game. He had 87 yards receiving. I mean, but once again, Drake London touchdown.
But also Cordell Patterson. A lot of people said Cordell Patterson was not going to be good this year. I drafted him in both my fantasy leagues. I'm like, you know what? I am not low on Cordell Patterson. He's not just going to fall off. And he's had a great run so far this season. Granted, this game, he was not much of a factor. But he has played good for the Falcons, and I expect him to keep playing good for the Falcons.
Yeah, Cordell had 17 carries, 141 yards, and then a touchdown. Marcus Mariota was all right in this game. He had 229 yards, one touchdown, one interception, and Geno actually outperformed Marcus Mariota in this game.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yep.
Interesting. But yeah, still Falcons got the win barely. 4-point game. It was a good game for sure.
Yep.
If I had the time, I would go back and watch every single game. Because, a lot of these games this week were good. Especially like this next one. I mean, Packers, Buccaneers. So, this is the game where I had to think a little bit. So, I took both offenses almost completely out of the question for this. The Buccaneers had no wide receivers besides Perman or whatever his name is.
Perriman, yeah, Rashad.
Perriman. That, they had a few people they could throw it to. And, the Packers, they didn't really have anybody they could throw it to either. And, running back, Aaron Jones is better than Leonard Fournette, in my opinion. But the offensive line on both teams are questionable. So I still gave both about the same rating, that both offenses just weren't great going into this game. But what really was the changing factor was the Packers defense versus the Buccaneers defense. The Packers had the Packers secondary is so much better than the Buccaneers secondary. Now, the Buccaneers front five are probably better than the Packers front five. But I went with the Packers barely because I felt that with Brady not having targets, he was going to have to go for short passes, and that the long passes were going to be out of the question for this game. But the Packers, they could make those. And I don't actually know how much of a factor that was in this game, but all I know is it was 14-12, and the Buccaneers had to kick some field goals.
For this game, I know Aaron Rodgers said he saw something on the Jumbotron. Still don't know what that is. But, with this game, Mike Evans not playing because, he decided to get suspended for a game. Russell Gage had a touchdown. But, I mean, looking at it, Aaron Rodgers spread the field pretty good. Romeo Doubs, a later round pick for him. At receiver, he played good. Didn't see Christian Watson in the box score, so don't know if he played or if he was hurt or if Rodgers was
he was
just non-existent.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't get to watch this game, but
Same.
I mean, hey, I chose the Buccaneers because Tom Brady's Tom Brady, but Aaron Rodgers figured it out.
Yeah, I was driving back from Texas to Arkansas during the late games. That I didn't leave till about probably about 3 something. I stayed for the end of the first games, but then I didn't get to see any of these later games. But so I don't actually know what happened in this game, but it looks like at the end of it, the defense probably was what was the deciding factor.
Yep.
Which next game, 49ers, Broncos, I felt the 49ers were the much better team over the Broncos, that they had the defense, that Jimmy, while he wasn't great, Jimmy Garoppolo and Russell Wilson are very equal in my opinion. That Russell Wilson has a little bit more running ability, but his offensive line is worse. So I put them as even. I just felt the 49ers were the better team. I do think the Broncos had the better wide receivers, but barely. But the 49ers have more good wide receivers. So I felt it was going to come down to that 49ers defense. And it was a close game.
Yeah, this game was a toss-up for me. And I went with the 49ers. I couldn't tell you what set me over the edge for that one. And really looking at the box score, there was not really a standout player other than maybe Cortland Sutton for the Broncos. He had 97 yards. But
Yeah.
other than that, it really was not like a crazy game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have much to say about this one.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it. Now, let's see. I got back too late, so I didn't get to watch this one. I did get to see Dallas Giants Monday night. And I mean, I went Dallas because is the Cowboys playing the Giants. That the Giants played good week 1, but I felt the Cowboys defense was going to stop the Giants. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. Cooper Rush has played better than expected, but granted, he's playing pretty good. 3-0 as a starter. Granted, he hasn't played the best teams, but I figured he was going to do better than the Giants. And in fact, the Cowboys were going to do better than the Giants, so I went with Cowboys.
Yeah, this one I bought into the hot streak of Cooper Rush, and also the fact that the Giants started off 2-0 and like the teams they beat, I was just kind of surprised, I guess. So I was like, you know what? I think the Cowboys have got this. I caught a little bit of this game. It was a Monday night, so we had a JV game, so I caught like the last of it or a little bit of it. And I believe it was this game. I saw CD drop a couple balls. I think it was this
he had
game.
a terrible drop.
Yeah, he had like one that could have been a huge gain, and he just like hit him in the hands, and he dropped it. And he like laughed that he dropped it, and I was like, dude, how'd you drop that? Now, granted, I mean, like, I get you drop some, but like he was open, like wide open.
Yeah.
Would have scored too.
Yeah. You know what is? I do think Daniel Jones is fighting for his life out there right now.
Oh
That-
yeah, 100%.
This is his last year as a starter, and he is truly fighting. But you know, and he's not getting help.
No, he's
Who
not.
is it? Kenny Galladay
He's
plays terrible.
and then Sterling Shepard tore his ACL.
Dude, that was sad. I saw him go down. I'm like, oh, he's
Yep.
done. That's an ACL right there. And you know,
Yeah.
Barkley's the only one helping him out. But even then, he didn't help very much. But he had some good runs. But yeah. Well, and here's kind of how we did. You got the Browns right. Both got the Bears right. Both got the Raiders wrong. Both got the Colts right. Both got the Bills wrong. You got the Vikings right. Both got the Ravens, Bengals, Eagles. Both got the Saints, Chargers wrong. We only had 2 different games this week.
Yeah,
Rams, Falcons, Buccaneers right. Niners wrong. Cowboys right. Then I picked the Steelers and the Lions, and you came out on top.
yeah.
Let's
That was a good week for me. That was a really good week for me. And the Bills
now
won.
I'm
Who would have
looking at
thought?
this. Did I hit something wrong? Because it looks like I went 7. Hold up. I gotta check this. 1,
Let's see.
2,
I'll see if I can
3,
spot it.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I hit the bucket. That's right. I picked the Packers. You picked the Buccaneers. You made another mistake on there. But yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.